Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Pierre, he's Chris, and we're here with some more of our must-start running backs, this time Week 11 version. All right, let's get to it, Chris. Give me a guy that you like at running back.
I must like living on the edge because I am once again telling you, you've got to start Myles Gaskin. He's had 34 carries over the last 2 weeks. Bad news, it's only resulted in 65 yards, mainly because this offensive line is one of the worst run-blocking lines I have ever seen. But there's reason for hope in Week 11, and that hope comes in the form of the New York Jets defense. 65% of the touchdowns that have been scored against the Jets have gone to running backs. Myles Gaskin's a running back. He's getting the touches. In this matchup, it's just too hard to look at this spot and ignore Myles Gaskin. Has a great chance to score. Should be able to average more than 2 yards per carry against this defense. So I think this is a week where you have to trust Myles Gaskin in your lineup.
If you need convincing for Myles Gaskin, which you might for this week, got 2 words: Matt Breida. Talk about Leonard Fournette. He kind of entered the every week must start conversation, at least as an RB2. It's kind of a letdown game after the bye, and Fournette only 47 rushing yards. Thought he would have done better. But you may not have noticed he also caught 8 passes. But the thing is, Fournette was still the guy, right? You hardly saw the other running backs involved. And Fournette has been a solid RB2 pretty much for the past 5 weeks. So going against the Giants this week, don't want to say a guarantee, but I'm pretty sure that they won't be behind too much of the game, if at all. I think they're going to come back strong. I think Fournette is going to see a lot more favorable game script. They're going to be able to stick to the run. I think he could be actually a top 10 running back in Week 11. All right, Chris, your turn. Another running back that is a must start.
Well, of course, the big injury news for Week 10 was Aaron Jones, unfortunately. But thankfully, it sounds like it's only going to be a couple-week injury. But this is going to open the door for A.J. Dillon to finally get off your bench after the last 10 weeks and crack your starting lineup. And it couldn't have come at a better time facing the Minnesota Vikings, who are the epitome of a run funnel defense. They rank 5th in defense against the pass and 24th in defense against the run. So you got to think the Packers, they're just going to lean on A.J. Dillon in this game. He's going to get a heavy dose of carries. He had 21 carries last week, even though Aaron Jones played a good portion of that game. And the other nice thing about A.J. Dillon is he's starting to catch passes. 2 weeks ago, he had 4 catches. We saw him have a big catch in that fourth quarter on Sunday. So if he's going to get 20-plus carries and 2 to 3 catches, he's going to be an absolute monster in this matchup. He's got to be in your lineup.
Yeah, and this is why you draft backup running backs. You know, not all of them necessarily have fancy value, but a guy like Dillon, we know the potential in that offense. If you've been stashing David Montgomery, you were happy to see him back before the bye. Of course, was off this past week. He is still the clear RB1. There is no question, in case you're confused, because David Montgomery had 13 carries. Herbert had only 4. So if you're concerned about, this becoming like a committee or, Montgomery not taking the lead role for whatever reason, just forget all that. This is a team that is going to want to establish the run. And going against Baltimore, also, I feel like this is not a matchup where you should worry too much and fade them. Yes, Baltimore's a good team. They're not a dominant defense this year. In fact, you've probably seen the stats. And since Harbaugh has been the coach for the Ravens for a long time, this is one of the worst defenses he's ever put on the field. And against the running back, they're 20th in terms of fantasy points allowed. So no reason to worry or fade Montgomery. Definitely keep him locked into your lineup. All right, who else should we have locked into our lineups, Chris?
Everybody's favorite league winner, James Conner, thankfully bailed you out with a touchdown last week. Did barely anything on the ground. Didn't really catch a ton of passes. But things should be better here in Week 11 going up against Seattle. Giving up the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs. This is not as good of a run defense as that Carolina Panthers defense is. So a much better spot for James Conner here. And there's at least optimism that Kyler Murray could finally play, right? There was a chance last week. He did get a limited practice in. That will help the entire offense. James Conner probably not going to be a league winner down the stretch, but he's going to be a solid high-end RB2, especially in this matchup. So keep him in your lineup. Don't give up hope.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about last week. Everyone's going to panic over Arizona all of a sudden. Just don't. They'll be fine. I think Ramondre Stevenson is someone that you need to have in your lineup. Okay, so Damian Harris didn't play this past week, but Stevenson did. Both guys were in the concussion protocol, and Stevenson, as you saw, rolled up 100 yards with 2 touchdowns. If you happen to put him in your lineup, you were pretty happy with that. So it's a Thursday night game for the Patriots this week, and they're playing the Falcons. It's not a bad matchup, obviously, but Damian Harris, even though they didn't officially practice on Monday, he was estimated to have missed the practice, which means he's still not back and ready. There's a good chance, again, with a very short turnover, Harris doesn't play again. What does that mean? Stevenson gets the backfield to himself again against the Falcons. I think that you have to keep him locked in there. There's a good chance that he scores because he is one of those big bruising backs that is going to be used at the goal line. This Patriots offensive line is really good. Doesn't really matter who they put back there, it seems like. I think Stevenson, even if Harris does play, I don't think he's going to get his full complement of touches. So even if Harris plays, I like Stevenson at least as a flex play or an RB2 if you need him. All right, before we share our final picks, we have a lot of other ways to help you win. Check the description to find out more. All right, Chris, set me up with your final must-start running back.
James Robinson, he's back. I mean, he only played 59% of the snaps in Week 10, but most of that was in the second half when the Jags somehow were still in this game. In the first half, they kind of eased him in, didn't use him too much. I think he'll be back closer to his typical 70% plus snap share. And going against the 49ers, this isn't the 49ers defense that we used to be scared of a couple years ago. They're gettable on the ground and even through the air, but definitely on the ground. And they've allowed the third most rushing touchdowns to running backs. You know, James Robinson, another week to get healthy, should get the bulk of the work. Going against this defense, got to be locked in at least as a high-end RB2.
Definitely agree with you on that. My final pick here, I feel like I want a guy who I think is going to have positive game script on a very good offense. So I'm going to roll with Tony Pollard. So we saw after a very down a couple of weeks for him, he was kind of back at it in the win over Atlanta. Got 6 catches for 56 yards, along with 42 yards on the ground. Going against Kansas City this coming week, yeah, we expect fireworks. If this is going to be a shootout, then you know that Pollard, among other people, will be involved. I like his chances as a kind of low-end RB2 flex play. So if I do have him, and I got question marks at running back, I'm putting him in. I'm feeling a big game from him this week. All right, that does it for must-start running backs. This is week 11. Guys, it's almost fantasy playoff time, so get those lineups set and try to win. Go in strong for the postseason. All right, thanks for watching.